Next, on Currents News, a dire warning from the CDC about coronavirus as President Trump publicly predicts it will go away. But what he's saying in private is a different story. This as the church faces difficult decisions this Lenten season. Also, we'll preview tonight's Democratic presidential debate ahead of the South Carolina primary.
It's Black History Month, and we're touring one of the historical hidden gems of Brooklyn, Weeksville Heritage Center. I'm Emily Druby, and that is ahead.
Plus, the history behind the Ash Wednesday papal procession dating back centuries. Your news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. It's not a question of if, but when the coronavirus will spread throughout the United States. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issuing a warning tonight saying we should prepare for disruption to everyday life in the case of a pandemic. Prepare for the expectation this is going to be bad. Those words this afternoon from the CDC's director of the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. The coronavirus, which began its spread in China, then moved to other countries, including the U.S., has government health officials worried.
Given the high-risk environment that the Diamond Princess cruise ship passengers came from, I would not be surprised if we have additional cases.
Hundreds on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship were infected. They were quarantined in Japan, but were recently given the okay to disembark and return to their home countries. Meanwhile, earlier today, President Donald Trump said the coronavirus crisis was under control in the U.S. But behind the scenes, he's reportedly frustrated at how his administration is handling the outbreak. This morning on a state visit to India, Trump expressed confidence to reporters that the situation here is okay, even as other countries are hit hard.
I can speak for our country. For our country is under control. But again, we do business with a lot of other countries. We take care, we work with other countries. We want other countries to be happy, healthy, and well.
There are outbreaks being reported in several parts of the world. As new cases slow in China, they're increasing in countries like Iran, Italy, and South Korea. The doctor who heads up emergencies for the World Health Organization is worried that if the coronavirus is not brought under control, it could engulf the globe.
The virus may settle down into an endemic pattern of transmission, into a seasonal pattern of transmission, or could accelerate into a full-blown global pandemic.
The immediate risk to the general American public remains low. But as we have warned, that has the potential to change quickly.
There is currently no vaccine to prevent the virus nor medication to treat it. All of China's religious places of worship are being closed today as the country struggles to contain the disease. The illness has claimed almost 3,000 lives and more than 80,000 people are infected. At the same time, Catholic churches worldwide are taking action to keep parishioners safe from the virus, especially in Italy and Hong Kong, where church leaders are scrambling ahead of Ash Wednesday tomorrow. Currents News' Tim Harfman has a roundup of what's happening.
Catholic churches around the globe are taking major precautions amid concerns for the coronavirus. In Hong Kong, churches are celebrating masses online. Ash Wednesday services have been suspended. In Italy, several dioceses have canceled Ash Wednesday services and suspended public masses. More than 150 reported cases in Italy so far, mostly in the northern region. Public events in Italy, such as the Venice Carnival, have been suspended. Churches are also enforcing measures including no physical greeting during the sign of peace, shorter funeral services, weddings celebrated only with close relatives. Holy water will be removed from fonts, and parish dining rooms will have food in to-go containers. Here at home, Masses and Ash Wednesday services have not been canceled in the Brooklyn Diocese, though Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has suspended distribution of the precious blood over concerns for both the coronavirus and the flu. If the epidemic continues around the world, Holy Week may be impacted. Tim Harfman, Currents News.
At churches in the Holy Land, it's business as usual, even as Israel is reporting 18 people are infected with the virus. Catholic officials in Jerusalem are concerned about how that will affect Lenten and Easter pilgrimages. The patients are from a recent South Korea tour group. So far, no church, either in Palestine or in Israel, has closed its doors or stopped receiving pilgrims. That could change if Israel decides to restrict access. The Jerusalem Patriarch is praying for a positive outcome soon. The CDC's coronavirus warning set up another tough day on Wall Street after yesterday's 1,000-point drop on the Dow. Today, the blue chips again plummeted, down nearly 880 points, closing at 27,081. The NASDAQ was off by more than 250 points, ending the session at 89.65. And the S&P dropped almost 100 points to finish at 31.28. It is a pivotal time for the Democratic presidential candidates, with the South Carolina primary on Saturday and then Super Tuesday right after, where a third of all delegates will be up for grabs. Tonight, they'll debate in South Carolina to sway voters to choose them.
It is a little bit funny to find myself as the so-called front runner.
After a big win in Nevada, Senator Bernie Sanders will be the one to beat in tonight's debate, and his opponents are taking aim, fueled by his comments praising former Cuban dictator Fidel Castro.
As a Democrat, I don't want to be explaining why our nominee is encouraging people to look on the bright side of the Castro regime when we're going into the election of our lives.
Former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg will be on the stage tonight, but not on the ballot on Saturday. He'll be in the spotlight after his first performance received poor reviews. After cutting his losses in the Nevada caucus, Joe Biden is betting on the diverse South Carolina voters to help him make a comeback. He's neck and neck with Sanders in recent Carolina polls. And the two female candidates, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar, say they're not ready to quit the race for the White House. Tomorrow, political analyst Brian Browne from St. John's University will join us to break down the debate with a special focus on issues that matter most to Catholics. And he'll talk about who's got the best chances going into Super Tuesday. A close ally of President Trump is strongly urging the commander-in-chief to do more to protect civilians in Syria. Senator Lindsey Graham is worried about what he says is a slaughter in the northwestern city of Idlib.
I would urge the president to up his game, to declare a no-fly zone to protect the women and children of Idlib from being massacred.
The Pope has often expressed his concern over what's happening in Syria. At least 1 million people are fleeing the violence. The former Egyptian president, Hosni Mubarak, has died at the age of 91. For 30 years, he ruled the country as a hardliner, using repressive police tactics to put down any dissent. His longtime hold on power was broken during the so-called Arab Spring in 2011. A public uprising against poverty and corruption led to Mubarak's downfall and imprisonment. He was released from jail 3 years ago after being acquitted of most of the charges against him. Democrats in the U.S. Senate are likely to block 2 bills today that would protect infants from abortion and from pain. One requires medical care for abortion survivors, and the other bans the procedure for babies capable of feeling pain. Nebraska Senator Ben Sass sponsored both pieces of legislation.
When we see someone hurting, we know that this is not the way the world is supposed to be. Pain is not natural. This is not the order of things as it was meant to be. And so our heart leaps at the sight of someone in pain, not just a child, but especially when it's a child.
For the bills to advance, 60 votes are needed, and there's probably not enough Democrats to get over the top. Planned Parenthood and other clinics can't get federal taxpayer money if they hand out referrals for abortion. A federal appeals court in California is upholding a Trump administration rule that blocks the funds. The decision is a win for the president, who made a campaign pledge in 2016 to end federal financial support for Planned Parenthood. The pro-abortion group is losing about $60 million every year because of that rule. Here in New York City, 4 Catholic elementary schools on Staten Island are merging and will form 2 separate academies. The schools are St. Rita's, St. Teresa's, St. Adalbert's, and Holy Rosary. The new academies will operate out of existing classrooms. The New York Archdiocese is taking the action to create a strong foundation for the future while having room for growth as Catholic education moves forward on Staten Island. And stay with us. Brooklyn's Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello is moments away. The annual Catholic appeal in the diocese is about to get underway. The appeal raises money for school tuition assistance and many more programs that are vital to the church. All the information you need to know is still ahead in this newscast. Elsewhere in Brooklyn, there's a historic place that played a critical role in the freeing of America's slaves. For Black History Month, Currents News' Emily Druby reports from Crown Heights on a neighborhood that's nearly 2 centuries old.
So they began to market this area through the growing network of Black newspapers, saying, come, we're building this community.
It was one of the first communities for free Black Americans in the nation. Weeksville.
It had its own school, it had its own newspaper, it had a baseball team.
Now this almost 200-year-old neighborhood is preserved for all to experience at Weeksville Heritage Center in Crown Heights. Historic houses basically untouched by time.
It's a piece of history that's still alive, that's still there, it's tangible, you can see it, you can touch it.
The original Weeksville community was established in 1838, 11 years after slavery was abolished in New York State.
John Lefferts of the Lefferts family dies, and his heirs find out that their family is land rich but cash poor. So they begin a process of, starting to sell off parcels of land.
Some sold to James Weeks, who helped create Weeksville. It was a safe haven for freed Black Americans created during a time when slavery was still legal in many areas.
This was all very much a secluded area.
Safety which fostered success. The neighborhood produced influential members of society, like the first Black female doctor in New York. The community thrived too. It had a school, its own newspaper, and 3 Christian churches.
Weeksville represents Black people trying to live out the American dream. They were trying to be self-sufficient. They were trying to be entrepreneurial.
The Weeksville Heritage Center now protects this important history and teaches it to others, conducting tours on Saturdays during Black History Month, creating more opportunity to introduce the world to this hidden historical gem. In Crown Heights, Brooklyn, Emily Druby, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. The start of the Lenten season begins with a centuries-old tradition in Rome led by Pope Francis. We'll have that. Plus,
with Ash Wednesday this week, I'll show you how one Brooklyn parish goes from palms to ashes. I'm Tim Harfman. That story's coming up.
and later, patience is a virtue. A World War II hero finally gets a long overdue honor. So much more ahead on Currents News. But first, if you have a story idea or want to share a tip, email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Tomorrow, the season of Lent officially begins, and Catholics around the world will proudly don their ashes, a symbol of our humanity shown on our foreheads. But where do those ashes come from? Here to tell us is Currents News' Tim Harfman reporting from downtown Brooklyn.
On Ash Wednesday, millions of Catholics around the world receive a mark on their foreheads, symbolizing the start of Lent. But where do churches get the dust from? How is it made?
Bless these palms that will be used for ashes.
It's a Catholic custom many don't get to experience.
This is our preparation, burning the palms to create the ashes, which people will turn away from sin and devote themselves to the gospel.
Father Brian Patterson igniting the flame outside St. James Cathedral Basilica in downtown Brooklyn. Parishioners donating blessed palm from last year.
I asked them to bring palms, and I got a lot of palms.
A pile of palm strands and cross-shaped branches burning in the Brooklyn breeze. Father Patterson says there's no Vatican-approved guide on how to hold a palm burning service. In fact, parishes aren't required to burn their own. They can order ashes from religious goods suppliers. Father Patterson says it's not about the mark on your forehead, but conversion towards Christ.
Putting them on your head, not putting them on your head, it's really the change of heart that affects the blessing.
Parishioner ISABEL Navarro agrees.
What Lent means is a time of reflection, a time of maybe reading the Bible more to understand what you're doing.
A reflection Father Patterson wants other Catholics to consider this solemn season.
Is God really the center of your life, or is God an accessory to your life?
To prepare for Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. In downtown Brooklyn, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
To check on where you can receive ashes, go to dioceseofbrooklyn.org/parishes/locator. There you'll find information about your parish and can check with them on the times for services. For centuries, one basilica in Rome has been the first stop for the Holy Father on Ash Wednesday. It is there that Pope Francis will be the first one to receive ashes and kick off the Lenten season for the Holy City. Melissa Butts tells us more about the Pope's plan for Ash Wednesday.
On Ash Wednesday, this street here will be full of faithful, processing from the Church of St. Anselm behind me to the Basilica of Santa Sabina in front, and they'll all be led by Pope Francis. For centuries, beginning with Gregory the Great, popes have participated in the penitential procession to St. Sabina. It's the basilica traditionally marked as the first station church to visit in Rome for Lent. The rector of St. Sabina, Father Wagner, says walking to the basilica on Ash Wednesday is a time to recall the way to Calvary.
That could be a kind of remembrance also of the heavy way we have to go for Lent.
The Pope then not only participates in the procession, but is the first one to receive ashes inside the basilica before they are given to all the faithful.
Imposing of ashes is also a symbol of confession of our own sins, and in the sense that the Pope is the first one to get it. Also, he takes part of every man as a sinner.
Father Wagner says the Eucharistic celebration is not only for the people of Rome, but attracts a diverse global crowd.
You will have people here from every continent, from every generation, and you can see them on one spot.
Dating back to the 400s AD, the basilica was home to St. Dominic and St. Thomas Aquinas for a period. Since 1222, it's been run by the Dominican friars, who eagerly await the papal mass on Ash Wednesday. Atop one of Rome's 7 hills, the simplicity and centuries-old history contained inside the Basilica of Santa Sabina makes it the perfect church to kick off the liturgical season of Lent. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, helping your local parish. We're talking about the annual Catholic Appeal and the programs it serves, how you can be a part of it. Plus, we'll meet the vet wounded in World War II who is finally getting his due 75 years later. This Thursday, a Currents News special report, Eyes on You. It's about facial recognition technology used to fight crime, but also raising ethical questions that are troubling to religious investors.
The fact that it has the potential to be such a violation of human rights.
Women of faith speaking out in our special report, Eyes on You, Thursday on Currents News. The annual Catholic Appeal begins this Thursday and runs through June. Joining me to talk about this year's important goals is Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello, Director of the Office of Parish Giving and Vicar for Development for the Brooklyn Diocese. Thank you so much for being here, Monsignor. So tell us about the annual appeal and what programs it raises money for.
Well, it's annual, it's every year, and we raise all the funds that we need to have all the programs in our diocese. We fund our chaplains in our schools, our hospitals, we help out with the schools, we help with our senior priest, we help with faith formation that trains all the ministers in our parishes, we assist with Catholic charity. So many areas are funded by the annual Catholic Appeal, and we help the migration office, and we added this year for the first time youth ministry, and as you know, over the last couple of years, we had the annual, the capital campaign, Generations of Faith, and we raised $10 million to have youth ministers in every parish. Wow. And there are a number of parishes, like I think that we're up to about 114 parishes that have some form of youth ministry in their parishes. And now this is going to be part of the annual appeal so that we can continue to fund those youth ministers in the parishes.
Wow. How much money was raised through this appeal last year, and how much went back to the parish?
Well, we raised just about $10 million. This is 9.9 million we raised, and about $1.5 million went back to the parishes. Wow. Anything over the goal goes back to the parishes for their needs and special projects. So that was very good.
Right, and you saw a spike in online donations last year.
Yes, that's very important, and we're trying now to make sure that everyone really goes online. We have a tremendous increase in that, and also we want to try to introduce online giving for the Sunday collections as well. We started with the capital campaign to really introduce it, and more people are giving online. It's so much easier.
Yeah, it's definitely easier. So what's your financial goal this year?
Well, our goal to the diocese is $8 million, but we do raise over that because we have expenses and what goes back to the parishes. So we try our best. The goals haven't gone up in about 8 years. So we're trying this year, we did increase the goals a little bit. So we encourage the people to try to do a little bit more than they were, if they can. I always say, do what you can. If you can't do it, that's fine. And we understand that they are paying off their Generations of Faith campaign. They're giving to the parishes, and we're introducing now an increased offertory campaign. But people are good, and the people of Brooklyn and Queens have always been generous throughout the years for all the different campaigns, because people are truly faithful. And stewardship is all about sharing the blessings that God has given to you, your time, your talent, and your treasures. And the people of this diocese do all three. They're always there for us, and they're good people, and everything we get goes right back to the parishes to assist the people in their in their faith lives and ministry, and try to get the youth involved, take care of the elderly, so many things, our senior priest. So
one last question. We talked about online donating. How can somebody donate to the appeal?
They can go on our website, and all the information is there, and you'll show them how to do that. They can also just speak to their parishes, their pastors, or they can call the office, and all the numbers are there for you to to see. But they can call and we'll help them, or they can go online, our website, annualcatholicappeal.org, and so it's right there.
All right, Monsignor Jamie Gigantiello, the Vicar for Development for the Brooklyn Diocese, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Christine.
And finally tonight, a veteran's long-awaited fight for a Purple Heart is over. 95-year-old Luis San Miguel was hit in the shoulder by shrapnel while fighting in World War II 75 years ago. The veteran has been trying to get his Purple Heart ever since, but his service records were destroyed in a fire. And then, at a Boston Wounded Vet Run function, he got his wish.
This is certified that the President of the United States of America has awarded the Purple Heart. Established by General Lewis Washington in Newburgh, New York, August 7th.
I have to cry. I'm sorry. It's been worth it. I was so proud to serve our country.
Lewis is still active and working at 95. He's a cashier at a Stop and Shop and recently celebrated a birthday. Congrats to him. That is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.